Hello, everyone, back again. And today I'm interviewing Brian Homewood, who's one of the artists involved in the Come Eat With Me exhibition at Rochester Cathedral. And as you know, I've been having some wonderful discussions with some of the artists and Canon Gordon. And now it's Brian's turn, poor thing. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Hello, Victoria. I'm fine, thank you.
Good. I've been waiting to have a chat with you about your work and find
Yeah.
out more about what your approach is. So it's fascinating. I do like your style. So tell me, how did you start painting before we get into the exhibition? How
Oh,
did you
well,
start painting?
how did I start painting? Well, so that's yeah. Um, well, I suppose I've always drawn. I mean, even from as far as I can remember, as soon as I could hold a pencil, I was drawing. But mainly, I think my main influence, because I do a lot of, I was tended to be figurative. Well, that's my. It seems to come easier or whatever, but that was drawing part. Um, and I think my biggest influences then, I mean, was things like the DC comics and things like that, which there was Batman, Superman,
Yeah.
and things like that. I got a lot of influence from those early children's type of magazines. And there's a Beano, the Dandy, and things like that. And I was always trying to draw sort of action stories and stuff
Mm.
like that in scrap bits of paper and stuff like that. And I used to like using a Baro. I think Baro's pens were quite new then.
I
And
remember.
yeah, you remember them. And I used to pick them up because my dad, yeah, had an office and I used to take his Baros and stuff. And I used
Yeah.
to do nearly everything in Baro. I preferred it to pencil because Baro you could go on any types of paper where pencil was different. Yeah, but
Mm.
anyway, that was the sort of start. Anyway, as far as I can remember.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's,
painting came later, really. I mean, you did painting at school, that sort of thing. Um, but I used to win up the school art prizes and stuff like that.
oh,
But I didn't really start seriously painting, I suppose, until well, my mother was going to an adult evening class run by Chris Alexander, or the late Chris Alexander,
yeah.
and it was life and portraits evening classes twice a week. I was 15.
I was going to say, how old were you then?
Yeah, I was
Quite
15.
young.
Yeah, and well, I left school at 15, but
Yeah.
and I was working, and I went to in my father's business at that time, and went to the adult evening classes, and that was my introduction to life drawing, life painting, and that sort of thing. So it's my base was basically figurative rather than landscaping, if you know what I mean. I was more
Mm.
interested in it as well. I suppose that's my basic influence, but since
Mm.
I've done all things, portraits, landscapes, still lives, everything. But I
Yeah.
mainly, yeah, sorry, yeah,
No, I think it's interesting. I think amazing how having a conversation with you raises so much memories. I think a lot of people
yeah,
don't remember that people used to leave school a lot younger. And
yeah,
adult education in those days when it was fledgling was actually vital, especially when it came to the arts,
yeah,
pottery and other things,
yeah,
and movement. And it's interesting to see
yeah.
to go back and see how different it is today. And
It's
yet,
very,
starting with a biro and going to life class. I mean, to be honest, the life classes must have been a big influence on you.
oh, but
Mm.
yeah, I remember my first experience, and it's not unique. I was a
Mm.
15-year-old boy going along to a life class, and there was this beautiful young lady sitting there posing like that. It took me about 10
Mm.
minutes to start because my hormones were going. But anyway, but it's not unique because I've heard that from other people. But it's quite
Yeah,
interesting looking
yeah,
back on the
yeah,
experiences of that, you know.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think
uh,
you've got a very open mind when you're young. about how to approach things. But like you said,
Yeah.
you can be influenced. So what was your move then? How did you become more active in the art world?
Yeah, well, I worked for Dad for a while in business. I suppose I was young. I wanted to get out and do things, and I wanted to travel. So I
Oh,
saved up, and then booked, saved up, booked a boat. It was all by boat then. It wasn't by flying. I went to
yeah.
South Africa, where I had cousins and an uncle
Oh,
there,
oh,
and
a
then I
long time.
started. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
must
it
have
was
been.
in the apartheid times then.
Yeah.
And I was quite naive, and I just went backpacking and hitchhiking and stuff like that, and getting jobs, and
Mhm.
quite, it was a fairly dangerous time, but I was young and naive, and I got away with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a job because I had a drawing ability. I saw this job come up, and it's scenery painter for 20th century Fox.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went for it and got it.
Yeah.
And with no real experience of it, but I mean, suddenly I wasn't painting or drawing and small bits of paper or whatever, it's massive, great curve, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they used to come up with the designer would cut of the sets would come up with what he wanted to do, and sometimes it was all mapped out to draw, and we just painted it. Yeah, it's very interesting. I was with them for a year. It was doing theatre productions and all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm.
I got involved with painting some of the backdrops and portraits and stuff like that. It was quite interesting.
Very
It was
varied.
a good time.
Yeah, but also different skills, different
Yeah,
techniques,
yeah. I mean,
different
I was
different medium.
meeting, and it's the people I was meeting there. I mean, they
Yeah.
even had they had a sculpture doing up sets, and he was making figurines out of polystyrene and carving them up and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
believe it or not, he was brilliant. And he didn't even have a qualification. He was just on demand because he
Yeah.
was good at what he did. It's quite interesting. So you don't always need qualifications, degrees to get these jobs. You just go in. Well, it was like that in those days. It might still be. I don't know. Yeah.
I think to a certain extent you have to make your own luck and be open to
Yeah.
rejection as much as you are to opportunity. But yeah, I mean it's a mindset, isn't it? In those days,
Yeah.
people went into their father's or parents' trade, and women didn't
Yeah.
work, and it was kind of like very limiting in a different way than it is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So, how much traveling did you do, and how much did that influence your
Right.
art?
Yeah. We had to move all around and in South Africa doing it. I did it for about a year. I was in South Africa for 2 years, but
Wow.
I did this job for about a year, and it
Mhm.
enabled me to travel to Durban, Johannesburg, rather than the Cape area, where
Uh-huh.
where I first started. It was the Cape, then it was Durban, then it was Johannesburg. So I did see a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so you ended up back here in Blighty or elsewhere?
Yeah, I ended up back here, and after a couple of years, I ran out of money on God knows what, uh, and I thought I'd had enough, and I came home again. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And so what else happened with your painter journey, and what kind of techniques have you preferred? I mean, what do you prefer to
Uh,
work with now?
I mean, I've tried various techniques. If you're talking about painting, I've
Mm.
tried impressionism. I've done things out of my head. It's abstract.
Mhm.
I tried wet on wet, which is oil. There's a painting behind me, which is
Yes, that's
still life.
lovely.
That's really that's wet on wet. I mean, I've tried all different types of techniques,
Hmm.
and yeah,
And what's your favorite? What's
I'm still learning. In fact, I'm like a student. Want to try. I'd like to try other things. This is why when the Sandra mentioned to me about this latest thing of the Rochester Cathedral, I thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. I've never done
Hmm.
gold leaf and blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I said, oh, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. I'm glad you're
it's
enjoying it too.
something new, something different, and I'm learning. You
Mm.
know, you never stop learning. You know?
No, there's a wide variety of different approaches and different
Yeah,
techniques. Different artists have different views. There's a lot of us. I mean, there's 18 of us all coming together. Plus,
yeah.
there's other aspects of it with the sculptures and the different paraphernalia and the
Yeah.
music, of course. We've got some lovely music.
Mm.
So, how do you find your inspiration then? For example, I play music. Do you play anything, or do you like silence?
Both.
Variety.
I'm on Spotify, and
Oh
so
yes.
and I've out in my studio. I've got speakers and stuff like that, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes I like all sorts of things. Sometimes I even listen to Radio 4. But I mean, I also like, I
No,
mean, my age group was Led Zeppelin and things like that,
I
and
know.
the Cream and stuff. And I like all music really,
Yeah.
and I like it down to heavy metal to some classical anything.
Hmm.
I'm not, and I sometimes quite like the modern music as well. You know, like my grandchildren play. I said, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
that sounds good. What's that?" You know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
keep my mind open. I'm not stuck in the 60s. But one of my granddaughters, she's a musician. She's a singer-songwriter, one of my granddaughters. She's
Hmm.
26, 27 now. But
Oh, how lovely.
she went to BIMS Music School in London, which is contemporary music.
Yeah.
And she's been, I remember she did a song and she put it on TikTok. And you know, within an hour she had 6,000 hits.
Whoa.
You know,
That's wonderful.
that's how they
Yeah.
do things these
Yeah.
days.
Very quick now, isn't it? Very
Completely
quick.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
you,
so
of course, that's on YouTube, Spotify, everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the world of art has changed as well, isn't
Oh, yeah.
it? And how
Yeah.
we can promote ourselves and sell
Yeah.
our art. I think it's very important that we still have these very physical exhibitions because when you see something, say like Leonardo's Last Supper, I've seen present representations of it for years, but it's only
Mm.
when you see the real thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you see the real thing, you think, God, that's tiny, or that's much bigger
Yeah.
than I thought.
That's like that's like the Mona Lisa as well. When you see it in
Yeah,
reality, you think it's only a small painting, and things like
yeah.
that.
And
And
it's
I
even
look
more
at it and I
fine.
said, why do they rave about this? It isn't that brilliant, well, in my opinion.
Well, it's of its time. But I think
Yeah,
it's the
it
whole
was.
thing about doing
It was.
exhibitions for artists because a lot of artists are online and people
Yeah,
don't really know what they're buying until they've got it in their hands.
yeah,
And I
that's
think
right.
so the world has changed in the art world. And I'm
There's
sure
some
you
very
belong
good,
to groups.
yeah,
Mm.
but there's some very good tutorials on it, isn't there?
Oh
With
yeah. Yeah.
techniques and stuff like
God,
that.
I would have died and painted, paid lots of money for some of the painting
Yeah,
tutorials I've done,
mm,
the insights
yeah,
recently.
mm,
But I must say that the whole exhibition and doing the with a certain religious context,
yeah.
I've never done that before.
Oh,
I have when I was younger, I was brought up in a Christian school,
yeah,
and I was interested in the figures of some of them, and I did draw a few things, but mostly I was more influenced by other modern artists,
yeah.
and so I found this experience quite interesting. How have you found the religious aspect of it? Are you secular or are you religious in any way?
Oh, not really. Spiritual, but not particularly
Mm,
not religious as such. That's a way of explaining. I know it's a very broad word.
mm,
Um, I mean, I've studied yoga, so I mean, for many years. So in that period, I've done transcendental meditation. I've done courses. And one time, I was an Iyengar teacher of yoga,
were you?
which I learnt in London
Okay.
under Iyengar's main. They were 2.5 hour sessions then,
Yeah.
and they used to come out absolutely aching all over. And I just remember that. I remember I was next to or going there, and the one of the students was a professional footballer, and he said after coming out this, he said, "I ate more after this than a football training session." They were
Yeah.
quite tough, physically
Yeah.
very tough.
Yeah.
But it was
So
good training.
do you meditate or use that
I still
sense of
do both. I
spirituality?
still do both. I still do the
Mm.
exercises, and I still stand on my head, and I'm 75.
Does that alter your painting? Just standing there.
Upside down. Yeah, yeah, inverted.
I
No, I
have
mean,
I
I've been
have
doing
seen an
I've been doing
sorry.
it for years, and it's standing on my head is like standing on my feet.
I have
It's
seen a lot of people turn paintings upside down to get a
oh
better
yeah.
perspective, which I find very strange. It doesn't
Oh no.
really do anything for me.
No.
I like to walk away and then come back. So if you how did you approach the actual apostles then and the different types of
Well,
people?
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I went online. I got given a few. In fact, they weren't actually from the actual Leonardo's Last Supper, but I went on. I googled it, and I googled several images. I didn't even know if they were authentic, but they were all copies or versions of the Last Supper. I
Uh-huh.
looked at. Um, I got. I didn't like any one of them in particular, so I used how I did mine was I used it with three different versions. I painted it from three different. I had three versions in front of me on screen and printed,
Mm,
and even then, and then I made my own up from that.
mm,
And I also painted him this Saint Bartholomew, and I
yeah.
thought, well, hold on a minute, they all look too European to me, and I thought that was the reason for that. Probably Leonardo did it in that way to please the Romans of his time and in Italy and that sort of thing. So he
Mm,
used very much European figures to look at. So I thought I'm going to paint it in how I think it would have been more realistic was
mhm.
to give him a darker in skin tone and take it from the complexion of a Middle Eastern person, which I think would have been more authentic.
Mm,
I might be wrong, but
mm,
that's one my head. That's the reason I did it the way I did it.
mm. And it's a beautiful painting, very, very
Well,
good. I
I'm
recommend
still,
everybody. So, what was that? Sorry.
I'm still looking. I look at it now and I think, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done
Uh,
that. Yeah,
but don't you think all artists do that all the time and
probably.
writers?
Probably.
Because I write as well, and I know authors always want to revise everything they've
Yeah,
written. Painters definitely could because you could go on forever, really.
you
You're never
can.
really
You
satisfied.
can. Yeah.
And if you leave it a year and you come back, you can see how much is missing. But these things are finite. And so the exhibition is on now. It's got 10 days to go. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, 10 days. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So if anybody's watching this now and you've missed the opportunity to go to the exhibition, please do go on our website and have a look at the work that's on there. It's a tremendous amount of work has gone into this exhibition. With 18 artists, loads of artisans. We've got um, representations of first century pottery, music.
Anyway.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for talking to me about your journey in art. And it's interesting. It's good to remember. And also that it's very relevant for today because we're in 2024. We've got a wonderful exhibition in a very ancient building on a very ancient table. And we're younger than the table. Okay, so thank you very much then, Brian, and everybody. And I'm glad you've all joined in on these interviews. And I've got a few more for you. So hope you're enjoying the art. Do come along to the exhibition if you're current. And as I said, if you've missed us and you're still interested, go and look on our website. Thanks. So just before we go, Brian, do you have an email address that people can contact you on if they want to?
Brian C. Homewood at gmail.com.
Brilliant, lovely. Oh, thank you, Brian. If anybody wants to talk to you, they can contact you and you can direct them to your work. Wonderful. Thanks very much then, everybody. Thank you, Brian. Bye.
Thank you for inviting me.